Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. My name is Ben Maldonado, and we are recording here on Friday afternoon, the 20th of October. I'm here with, as always, with my partner, Barrie Hederachi. Barrie, how you doing? Do you take your seatbelt off now?
Yeah,
Since
for
the
the
market's
weekend.
closed.
Yeah. It was a good week, good trending week for once.
Yeah, you could catch a lot of trends, and we're going to spend a lot of time this week trying to decipher, where we go from here because we are at a very important spot, and we're not just saying that because of the time or the cycles or anything, but technically we're at some important areas. So we're not going to delay on that. I'm going to cover the commodities. We got grains to talk about. We got sugar and coffee. They go well together.
Hmm.
Gold and silver, crude, nat gas. So we're gonna touch on them on all of those. And but let's jump into the ES right now, given the close below this important level that we just looks like we're going to have this afternoon.
All right, let's get on with it. So we left off with the key number last week, which was 4370,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw what happened there.
Man, as
And
soon as it cleared under that, it just
well, it
dropped.
cleared, and we had this little check back right there,
Yeah,
that
tried to rally up to it. And,
rally up to it, and that was it.
yep.
So, okay, that was last week's talk, and everything kind of came down the way we expected it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a 30-minute view of all of that, how it came down. And here's that
The check back.
check
Yep.
back that we had in not the easy one, it was this big old expanding triangle, even with 3 drives going in, right?
That was in the middle of the Powell crap, right?
Yeah.
His speech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But look, not only did it come right exactly, we had that 43.67 on the 30-minute chart. We had a
Mm-hmm.
little trend line coming down.
Trend
It was
line.
exactly right to that. And from there, it was just, it slipped away. And now we're at 42.50, which is really sort of a support area. And the old low, if guys can see here,
Mm-hmm.
October 4th. So we had that low. That's right around 42.35. 42.42 is a really important level for us, which was held here on this spike. Remember that little fake before the run up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're right there. Let's see how it goes. Let's start with the.
I mean, Barrie, when you look at that, you got to think that they're going to have to at least false break this thing. That's the
Okay.
best case scenario, right? For the Bulls, is they false break it.
Yeah, I mean, get this close and not take
Yeah,
take
yeah,
under that, right?
they got to grab the stops for sure if they're going to go higher,
Yeah, yeah.
or they just gap and go. They might just run it down too.
Well, it's funny. It always, of course, it couldn't close in the middle somewhere. It came right exactly to a zone,
Right.
and that never makes it easy because it's at the zone. Because
Yeah.
and we'll get into that in a second. Why these zones make it a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take it back. What I want to talk about is this low. We came into this low, we squared out, and we thought at the time what I said was, well, if it's going to hold, let's have the first impulse coming off of that low,
Mm-hmm.
and look for the first pullback. Are we going to have a higher low or not? And that's usually our sort of the first signpost that we look for anytime we have a corner that gets squared out.
Mm-hmm.
Logical thing to do. And so what happened was, and higher the pullback low, sort of, the stronger the market, right? That's kind
Right.
of the basic rule. But we can get close. We can get very close to the low and then rally like we did here. We had a low here, and you can see how the pullback low came down almost to that.
Right.
And then we had this nice little move up. So the point is, it can come really, really close. And long as this is making a higher low, it's a higher low. Now, what I said at the time, I remember really well, is I can't remember that. I think we were looking at this SPX chart.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was like, if we take this low out, then that's really negative, because we can't square it out under 40 by 45 and then just have it be taken out few days later.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with that.
Bueno there.
I think we're in a precarious position, but let's go.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So let's see how this works out. So we talked about, so that's the first thing. The overall map is we had a corner here.
Mm-hmm.
and we squared out. We looked for some kind of an impulse, which we got. And then we were looking to see where the the higher low would come in. And well, we don't know yet because the low is still being formed, and even to this last second as we're speaking. Now, is that going to be a higher low, or is it going to be a lower low, leading to a square down here, which would be 90 by 90? That will be the end of the year. All right, let's take a look at this piece by piece. And before we do that, let's jump to the weekly really quick so we have a sense of where we are.
Big picture perspective,
yeah. Which we really kind of have to do. So the big picture, we had the last high, which was July high, squared out. We had 81 weeks high to high and 40 low to high. So we saw that coming. We called that out. We were looking for a move down. We got the move down, looking for the first counter trend, lower high. We got that. We called that out. We nailed that, sold off. This is the one that scored out 40 by 45, right? So at this point, we were looking to see, well, okay, was that the low? Because we were pretty close to the zone here at 50% of the square. And, I drew this box in here, and you guys can see that. But the high of that was around 42.10 or so. So the idea, and we broke the trend line. We broke the channel, right? If we were in here, within the channel, the party is still going. So as soon as we broke the channel, we talked about that in a previous video. Now, what's the story? Well, looking at the weekly, if I were to just read this out, we have lower to go. This is no place to stop.
Right.
And like you always look at it, if you want to look at it in 5 waves, we got 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Here's the 4, and
5. We're finishing up.
Yeah, it would just have to go lower just to straighten out the books.
Right.
Now, that said, what do we have below that? Well,
where's your half square?
Yeah, half square is right at 41.60.
Right.
61. Let's say 41.60. And of course, if you look at the highs of this big wedge that we were forming, that's right around
all in there.
42. Let's say 42, right? 42.
Yeah.
42.
Yep.
And so it's really in that sort of the 40-point range is where this all the.
And you shaded it already, so that you already identified that.
Yeah, we looked at it a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week before, I think. So, we were talking about, if we really go down, this is really the big support. That's what we're talking about.
That's right. Right.
And it still is a big support. And so that's what we see. So looking at the weekly, it looks like it could get a little weaker and it could go lower. Now, the caveat is it doesn't have to do it tomorrow or the next bar.
Right.
We could easily put an inside bar in next week and then, drop it after that, or we can even counter trend. I mean, look at, the last counter trend was 2 weeks, right? We had 1 week technically, right? 1 week up. Before that, it was 2 weeks up. So I would say it's getting weaker. It's getting weaker, which means there's a higher chance that we go and look at this 141.60, this zone out here.
Yeah.
50% of the square. And that the square still seems to be working. So I think the 41.60 area seems like a reasonable level to watch. But if you look at the bars, it comes up to 42. So, we have a 40-point range there. So that's what we have to take from the weekly. From the daily, which zooms in a little bit, we're really pushing the 45. I mean, we're just right under it. So
right.
It's really pushing it. Now, there's a few different ways to look at that. But I think that not to overcomplicate this, just because it's at a new level doesn't mean we have to go crazy with it. I think we can leave it very simply. Now, coming into Friday on Twitter, and we talk about, we do these updates. You do them. We both do them every day. And the basic thing here was, 42.50 area was support. So if you were being short coming into today, then this is probably not a bad place to cover some, right? There is a risk. Every time you get into one of these critical levels, there's always a risk of some kind of a snap. And I know it was options expiration today, so there was a lot of options expiring, a lot of calls puts expiring. So you would expect the market to get pulled down into that.
And also a lot of de-risking over the weekend because they're concerned about what could happen in the world.
There's a lot of news, different stuff like we talked about last
Yeah,
time.
yep,
Right?
exactly.
So what about next week? Next week, the key thing is we're going to watch the low we had on October 4th, which was 42.35. Now, only two things can happen here. Actually, three things can happen here. Two things for the bulls.
Right.
It's easy for the bears because the trend is already going.
Yep.
Now, if you look at the momentum and everything, any momentum indicators and whatnot, man, everything is just like balls to the walls, right? We are
yeah.
just in the beginnings of a good slide down.
Right.
So let's not forget that, momentum is no joke. So let's keep that in mind. And let's keep the weekly in mind because it's all pointed down and it's coming down to 41, what did I say, 41 and a half or so, right?
41.60.
Yeah. Here's that same, here's this box right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That box.
Yep. That's your weekly box, right?
That's the box right there. And if you take it out, and there it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
The easy one would be, okay, let's just everybody get short on Sunday night or Monday morning and just write this thing out. Well, if your systems on lower time frames give you that, well, great. Strategically, I think Monday doesn't necessarily have to be the only trade for the week. Monday will help us decide which side to trade for the rest of the 4 days.
Correct.
So we can always allow some time for the market to set up, and that might be Sunday night. So the three things would be, first is we stop right here, and we have some kind of relief rally Monday, Tuesday, especially since all these puts expired. So relief rally is in the cards. We can't really ignore it. It doesn't mean we have a permanent low here, but at least we have enough to sort of, be concerned with about a relief rally, especially with the expiration. So that's one. Second one would be that we stop here and slowly start to grind higher, somehow move higher. The third would be that we do a false break and we run. And the false break and the run seems like really the thing that the S&P loves to do. So that's another possibility. So I would say Sunday night, Monday option will be to really watch the price action relative to this low on October 4th. So the October 4th low again was 42.35, right? So we want to see if we take it out and do a false break, or we're going to just run up or some kind of relief rally type of thing once the Monday market's open. I had to leave it like that because it'd be dumb to call anything else out at this point, especially knowing if you drag this out, you can see we do have a lot of support here,
Right.
Do that.
Right.
So this is not just any old area. There's a lot going on here, a lot of support. But that doesn't mean we can't spike down into 41.50 and just blow everybody out and then
finish reverse.
And reverse. Now, if we're going to do a sort of a slow train down, we do have a 90 count coming up in December. And if we really take this low out in a sort of the classical way, we just slowly start to trade lower, counter trend lower.
Right.
Then the fact that we took out this square, this is what we started out with. If this squared out, we take that square out, we open up the bottom square. So that would open up lower prices going all the way to December, let's say.
Right.
Right. Now it could be 72, but theoretically we can get to 90. That's we can't ignore that. So if it was 72, let's see what that's in time. And that wouldn't be so bad. Early part of
Early November. Yeah.
November 6th. November 6th. So that might be more in the cards, perhaps, right? We don't know. We'll have to see when we get there. And a lot of our work is really sort of seeing it in, calling it out in real time, and then taking the other side of the trade.
Right. From this point, and what you're doing, and we could talk about this at the end, is because what you're doing is basically showing how you go about looking at the market. You lay out the different scenarios, and then based on price action, you say, this one's most probable now, or this one's most probable now. It's hard, if not impossible, to predict it ahead of time. You have to let the price action unfold, and then it gives you sort of what the odds are for all the different options.
Yeah, you want the possibilities at least in your mind, because otherwise you're going to be like deer in front of headlights, because you want to know, okay, what are the different possibilities? So if it's not scenario 1, 2, 3, right, at least you have some idea and you know what to do.
Sure.
And that's the idea here. That's why we're kind of tearing it up into little pieces so we know what's happening. And overall, the overall view is, well, this 150 area is pretty solid. Not just because of the pattern, but we're also half of the 81 square of 81 comes in right in there.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things going on there. So that's it. That's how I would leave it. You want anything? You want to add to anything? Add anything?
Just that we closed below my monthly half square at 43.61. So that's another sort of weak sign.
Way up here. Yeah, we're way below that.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And this, yeah, go ahead.
And then a daily half square, which we're right near, that we closed below, is 42.58. So the bulls got to get above that, or else it just opens up the full square, which is down at around 40.70. So that those are the markers for me, but it's all similar in the same areas where you are.
Yeah. So regardless, in the bigger picture, a floodgate downside move is in the cards. Like, it could happen if these levels
it's possible. Yeah.
If these levels get taken out, and obviously going down into this level, you're not going to be long. Obviously, you're going to be trading that. And once we get to 41.50, we'll have to figure out, okay, what's the next deal? Now, if we get to 41.50, if you look up what happens, all this is resistance now.
Yeah.
Right. So the other scenario,
I was going to say, if it back checks that and then rolls over, that's like lookout time.
Usually
that's lookout time.
Exactly. Now that would be the trade, because that's where a lot of these fast moves begin. It would start with us going down here, then we get trapped under that level. Right?
Yep.
And we'll come up for air and we can't do it, and then we sell off.
I mean, a perfect example is what happened at your 43.70 in the last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got trapped under it, and then bam.
Yeah, couldn't do it, and that was it.
Yeah, last 2 days it really, really hit hard based on getting stuck under that level.
Right.
So we'll see.
So
a lot of scenarios.
Watch it next week. But the main two things to take away is the low on the 4th. That's going to help us figure out, if we're going to hold that or not. And if we don't hold out that 35 level, then this 150 just seems like a reason, or anywhere in this zone really, but the 150 would be like the dead stop. It'd be like the big support level. 41.60 to 41.50, right? It was 41.60 on the weekly, so it's right in there. So it's really in that zone.
Sure.
Okay. What else can we say?
No, that's good. That's real good. Okay. Knowing the options is key, because if you don't know what could possibly happen, you could be blinded to something that's actually happening. And that's Mark Douglas stuff, right? You don't want to get blinded by a bias.
No, and one easy way to do that is know your levels.
That's right.
Right, you got to know your levels, and that's the main thing. And we're definitely below 41, this zone here. I mean, and that's another thing we talked about. 41. 43.25 goes, we were going to look at lower prices, and we got that. So now we know what to do here for Monday.
So what are you using for your sort of base levels then? For resistance above and support below? What are you using for the week?
Well, 42.70 is really the level for resistance, because if we can settle above 42.70, we're in good shape. No question about that, because we would have, however we do it here, false break or not, if we can settle about 41.70, we're in much better shape, and then we can run up to this 43.25 and check all this up here, right? So that's main level. On the upside, downside is 42.35 to watch, just mainly because that was a really kind of important low.
It's interesting. We have a really tight band this week.
very tight band.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's good because that gives us a very tight handle on what price could do.
absolutely.
Yeah, very tight.
And defines risk pretty nice and
Pretty,
tight.
pretty well. Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So the basic thing is if we can settle above that, we can expect it to move higher. If we can't get above that, we're stuck in here, we can expect it to go lower. So it's really between the 42.70 and this 42.35 low. That's kind of like where that box is. It's right in there.
I mean, this is a perfect example of how you do things, Barry. It's all based on levels, nothing to do with news. You don't care what happens, not that you don't care, but it doesn't affect your trading. What affects your trading is what does price do in relation to these levels.
Yeah, well, that's the only reliable thing. News, who knows, right?
Exactly.
At least I know the price will 43.25 is always going to be 43.25.
Right.
But
Right.
news, I got trust issues.
Yeah. Is it real or not? Right.
Exactly.
Price is real.
Price is real. There's no question. I'm
Yeah.
leaning on that.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll leave that alone. We've already looked at the weekly. So let's move on to bonds. Talk about another horror story here.
That's where the crash has been. I was thinking about that. I said that on Twitter this week at one point. I said, everyone's been looking for a crash. They got it, but just not in equities yet. It's been in bonds.
Exactly.
That's the crash.
And it's kind of been quiet because, well, not really, because I don't know, at least people I know, kind of mainstream people are just talking about yield, but I don't think they understand the impact where the bonds are.
Right.
It almost feels like that, like they're not really focused on the bonds, but just the yields. I mean, we know they both go together, but you know what I mean?
I mean, look at this. It's a massive move. Massive.
Yeah, massive move. And we've been looking for it, damn it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No question.
It's been a good move, and we talked about it when it was consolidating. It'd be great for you guys to go back and listen to what we were talking about through here, and we were starting to break, and here we go.
The thing with moves like that, you always look at it and you say, man, I wish I would have grabbed more of it, right? And it's like, that's how you improve, right? Is you figure out, okay, how can I grab more of a move that we actually saw and telegraphed and profited from? We did profit from it, but you always look at it and go, damn, I could have had more.
Yeah, well, that the thing is, there is a way to get around that. Actually, that should be a topic. You should make a note. We should talk about that.
Okay.
One of these weeks.
Yep.
About, damn, I should have grabbed more mentality, like, well, how do we deal with that? Because that's real.
Right.
Especially when you're sort of still getting into trading and,
right.
Always that, oh my God, I'd left all that on the table or I could have done more.
Right.
But it all kind of comes back to the systematic way you take it on, So,
right.
So we'll get into that later. But what I wanted to talk about here was that we could have a low in bonds, temporary low, at least a corner. Right in here, 25th next week. But it would have to happen right around 107. Okay.
That's 144 in time, right?
It's 144 by 108, which would be the half square here is 72 plus 36 there. So that's a good number for bonds. 144s are good numbers for bonds, and 108s are okay number for bonds. And it seems like we're stretched out. It would be a time for a little bit of a rally, and maybe even go back and check out 72 right around 116, if it wants to get that high. But I feel like right in here would be something we want to watch, especially when we're coming into kind of washouts. And now the news about the rates and the bonds, and everybody knows, everybody and their grandmother knows about what's happening to bonds and rates. So I think that's just about when things square out and they tilt the other way.
Let me know when one of those friends that's not really attuned to the market asks you about shorting bonds, because that'll be the bell ringing for sure.
Well, I told you last week, right? They were talking about that it was time to buy, and I spoke to them a couple of days ago, and I said, remember that time you wanted to buy the bonds?
Right.
Well, they were just laughing. But anyway, we're coming at 107 is support. That's what's for next week. And we have the 25th, 26th, I would say, the way you look at a square, you take 25th plus or minus 1 day. I think it's pretty fair for some kind of a low to come in. So here we go, guys. Now we're not shorting past that. We're looking into that right there. it looks like we're very close time and price. Okay.
Yeah, I got a monthly half square that's not too far away, 105.13, couple points away.
Okay.
So that could be a
Also, when you have
spot.
this, okay, yeah. Also, when you have a trend line like this, you see there's 2 points connecting. It's a
Mm-hmm,
little light,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and we take it out by a little bit. Momentum just pushes right above, and we get a little bit of overspill. That's can usually culminate a move. So that's
True.
happening here, and we could go down a little bit more. I mean, it would be great if we can touch 107
Mm-hmm.
and then give it up, but we're pretty, we came pretty close. We were down into the sevens, right? So
To your point of us having done enough, I have a weekly half square at 108.23, which we're right around right now. So we're
all
right
right.
around, yeah, right there. Weekly half
Mhm.
square.
That's pretty good. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll
So
get that.
we're
So
in the
bonds, that's
neighborhood.
what's happening on bonds.
Mhm.
Let's take a look at the weekly bonds. Well, there we go. We
Yeah, you got it the same spot, it looks like, right in there.
yeah,
It's your
now
it's your 144 actually.
it's a 144. It pushed a little lower, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
normally um futures markets do, and we have to get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I'm looking at this 180 over here. I mean, that would be like the deal, If we get down to 96, I don't think anybody's even thinking that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
That would be a
um,
lot of pain for a lot of people at that
but
price.
there is pain coming.
Yeah,
You can't
for
avoid
sure.
that. It's just a
For
matter of
sure.
when.
Yep.
And I'm just looking at this and thinking, hey, I
What
don't
are the
think par.
possibilities?
Yeah, par is not. That's not going to be the thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we go, we're probably going to go here. So 106 and a half or so. And now, we talked about, well, if this is kind of a low, let's look at the rally. So the rally, 114 and a half, 115 is really where the 144 down from the high in 2020, right? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the resistance. Yeah, we might be able to pop a little bit above that. In the worst case, we might get up to 117, 118 maybe because of these other lows up here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that and we roll over, then I think the 180 is real, unless we just everything burns up and we just go down in flames next week for some reason. Hey,
Right.
anything's possible, right?
It's possible. Yep.
And that's exactly why I'm saying, anything below 114.15 is susceptible to that kind of a downdraft. So
Right.
keep that in mind, that's the main thing. And the fact that we blew through the ABCD by
Mm-hmm.
that much means, uh, there's probably more to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got through the zone, got through the box. So this is really pointed further down, and yields are clearly pointed for further up.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll look at this 114.15 area long term to figure out which way the next trend is going. For now, it's down, and we're all looking for some kind of counter trend to test this.
Go to the star of the week, gold.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
crude.
in a minute, crude.
Yeah.
Yeah, gold really did earn the gold.
Mm-hmm.
What happened here, for one thing, we have this trend line. We've had it for, I'll tell you, I can't even remember for how long. It's months and months.
Yeah.
And I knew one of these days it's going to come and tag it. And we did. And what happened today? We went up and tagged it exactly that.
Yeah.
And
it held, which was impressive.
it held. It's very impressive. And here is that the overrun that we get. Remember, I showed you in bonds, you have 2 points,
Yeah.
trend line, and
Yep.
here is 3 point, and we run over it. Well, that usually exhausted, and it did. And look what happened, right? You get that relief pullback.
Yep.
In that sense, the breather. And so that's a good example of that. Anyway, so what happens to crude now? I think we're going to consolidate in here for a bit. It's going to have to get its momentum kind of revved up again.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, just rest between 83.91 is really the range. We're at the upper part of that. So I think crude's done pretty well. The fact that we did hit the trend line, it's possible that we come back down and check the lower side of that square, 83. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is what happens if today's high gets taken out? Well, then I would expect it to get to 97.
Right.
So there's no breaks if we start moving past that trend line this time. that means it invalidates this exhaustion here, which means we have another, much more to go at some point.
Right. I was looking at when I was doing the review with Crude, I saw right now it's the weekly full square at 89.25 and the monthly half square at 90.50 that are kind of holding it back. But once we get on top of those, as you said, it's just another leg higher.
Right. And here we're even above this half square, coming off the high. So we could take a quick look at the 72, see what that's doing. So
that's a good one.
I mean, that's where we stalled out last time.
Yep, caught the high.
If you look at the 90, we're right there. Above the 90, that's the key thing to watch here. And let's get back to our 60, get back to the simple. There we are.
And there you go.
Yep. So basically not much. Just watch today's high to be taken out. Otherwise, we're probably going to consolidate in here because the trend line hit, everything hit.
True.
Looking at the weekly.
It's just been inside last two weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We were inside here and we took out the inside, the first inside bar, we took out the high, it went up. And you can see the low of this week was above this box here, which was the quarter of the square from the low, which is kind of a big deal. And it's in a bullish position, it's not exactly negative. So we're going to treat it like that.
I mean, you're sitting on top of all that stuff from late last year, early this year, over here. Yeah, in here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's in a positive sort of a tilt, and we have a trend line here that's looking fairly good right there. But, plenty of room to move around a little bit. So I think give Crude a week off, maybe to consolidate and whatnot, even with everything's on fire in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's the ironic thing, right? Is everyone's worried about the Middle East blowing up, but Crude's kind of sitting there resting.
Well, no faster way to burn up all those crude options.
Good point.
Yeah,
good point.
So anyway, let's watch that. Next, we get into the winner of the week.
Yeah, what a week.
What a week. And there you go. Bada bing.
Yeah.
Right to the quarter, 1/3 line of the square here.
Barry, remember we were talking about trading off ABCDs? Man, look at that.
Yeah. I saw that
example,
and I thought,
right?
we should talk about, actually, I thought about that.
Yeah.
And the thought that came at the time was that we don't really have to worry about the low, or the high. Everybody gets so, not everybody, a lot of people get really focused in on the corner as if the whole trade is right there, And I think it's very clear. You can see after all that was done and sort of, God came down and showed you the direction, you get so many days to trade it.
Right.
You get plenty of days to trade it.
Yeah.
So that's the deal with the lows, or highs. Once you can isolate that, that's why we build all the scenarios, and then soon as it establishes itself, like in this case, we jump above 60, we know, okay, well, that's very positive. And then which direction to trade. So that's,
even at the low, you had that outside bar on the daily. That was your clue, right?
Exactly.
There's your clue.
I remember you calling that out, I think. The outside reversal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Friday. I remember that.
That's right.
And so anyway, so that's the deal. And same thing coming down into that. Remember that forever triangle that
as soon as it broke, you said, hey, that's the direction.
That's the direction, and there you go. So one of the things is that, you guys, one of the things, if you get to watch this and actually use this, the work that we do is really about isolating corners and taking the next leg. We don't really emphasize that, I don't think, enough, and we kind of act like everybody, it's understood.
True.
But we probably should, maybe make a note and add that to our intro, or at least how to use the podcast kind of, maybe I can write something up and add it to the description. There you go. That's what I should do. But it's really about that, isn't it? It's not really about calling the corner. It's really about trading the other side. That's the forecast.
Isolating the corner to find the next leg.
Yeah. So we looked at the week. So that's gold, doing great. What's coming up for next week? Well, I think we're in good place here. As long as we're above 1966, we're in good shape. I'll just leave it at that. 1966, we can consolidate, and we have history over here. We broke through that zone. So anything up in here is a good consolidation. And
We did 45 up on the daily, so it might pause a little.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, 1/3 of we came into 2/3 of the square here, or 1/3 from up there. So it is a place for pause, but long as the pause is above 1966, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Agreed.
Yeah,
looks very bullish.
Yeah, and that's a great example of an ABC terminating a big old bearish move. Remember how bearish everybody was here?
Oh yeah, yep. It was going to 1600.
It was going to go down at this point, and look what happened. We had the ABC,
exactly. Yeah,
we had the square reversed. So that's just life. That's just how it goes.
That's trading.
That's trading for you.
Yeah.
And looking at the weekly, well, we got to the target. There we go. There's a line, 2000. We got to it. So I would say it's probably a good place to, take some profit because, 3 weeks up is pretty good. It's a good week.
Listen, these squares are so beautiful. I was just looking at my weekly resistance half square, 2001.
Yeah.
Right there.
From there. Yep. It's pretty good. And you can see why we've been bullish the entire time, because we're sitting on top of this, 180 off that low. And it's a really, really important level. And so long as we're hanging out up here, it's always on a, maybe not a hair trigger, but it's, it's definitely good to go. Let's just say that.
Yep.
And now it looks like we can certainly be consolidating within, between 1919 and 2000. So it looks like we're there. So the next leg obviously would have to start once we comfortably get above 2000.
Agreed.
Right. So that's it for gold. Let's move on to copper, which is just
grinding
sideways.
Yep. Not much to say.
No, and we said all of it last week because 354 was really the support, and we were talking about how this time it might not hold. Well, Tuesday it almost didn't.
Right.
And then they remembered and bought it back up. And so we're just right there, and it's the problem here is it's below the 50% of the square. So regardless of 354, we've had it for a while, but the point is at some point
there's pressure.
And this build up below is and look at the lower highs, right? They're selling coming in, and they're really buying it up this point. But at some point when whatever that's leveraged at that level gives out, we might get down to 340. So we'll see. But for now, it's sideways with the downward bias, let's just say. And 354 is really the key to hold.
Good summation.
Yeah, let's just keep it simple like that. Looking at the weekly, well, we can see how lower prices could be in the cards.
Yeah.
And I mean, ABCD might be too much to ask for, but at least as long as we're above 90, it's in a positive space, let's say. And 336 is really where the 90 degrees is. And for now, it's still correcting. We took out this low back here. Well, we're at that low back there.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens.
We did hit a half square timing on your thing. So maybe
we did from the low. Yes.
Let's see if we get some sort of reaction off that.
We could do that. And looks like we had about a quarter square in there. But for now, it's let it rest a bit.
It's got to start moving.
Yeah, it's got to start moving one way or the other. All right. Next, we'll look at the dollar.
This is a great example of what we've been talking about too. We got above the square, and we're staying above the square. It's not taking off, but it's sort of consolidating and resting on top of it, which is still bullish.
Absolutely. And that's the thing to watch here. We got the little block drawn up. We're 72 degrees from the high. It's sort of a critical area. We had this ABCD to come up and complete what we didn't really sell off. We kind of consolidated very neatly right above the 72. And so that's the thing that keeps us bullish. Now, if we slip under the 72, which would be right around 105.5, we always talk about.
Yeah, then the story changes.
Yeah, then the story changes a little bit. But for now, I mean, even then, right? But for now, it's in a very bullish position, about 5.5. And, we'll let it rest there for a bit. also, that it did have a good run.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's it. That's it for bonds. Bonds. That's it for the dollar.
The dollar, right?
Okay, dollar weekly.
Look where we closed.
Look at that. Look at that. Exactly at the half square.
Right on the half square.
And so 106.75 was really the place to watch it on the weekly. And we got right to that, reversed inside week this week, which means next week could be a doozy if we take out this week's low. So watch for that. And but I mean, look at this. If you're gonna have a move like that on a weekly chart, a little bit of a consolidation pullbacks in the cards, right? We just can't be that foolish to think it's just gonna go straight up like that. So I think you have to know when the breather is coming, and it looks like we had it. We're starting to have it. So we'll watch it like that. We know the levels to watch. We have the resistance and we have the support. 105.5 is really the lower end of that. Looking at the euro, we talked about this in a little bit of length last week, so you guys can catch that. But basically, long as we're above this 104 area right in there, we're 90 up from the low. So it's a support area. And I think just like the dollar is consolidating a bit, I think it would be fair for the euro to consolidate here, or maybe even do a little ABCD action to the upside. I think it wouldn't be out of order for that to happen right there, which would be a quarter of the square, which, perfect spot. Perfect spot. And not only that, it just happens to be right under here.
Yeah, structurally good too.
Structurally very good. So I love it when ABCDs line up with the structure, right? I mean, those are the best. And where is that? Well, let's take a look at that. It's right around 106.6, 106.6. Yeah. Right there. What else do we have? The weekly. Weekly, we talked about this box area being sort of the consolidation area, but to the negative side. And long as we're below 108, it's in a weak state. And when we take out 104,
next leg down starts.
Next leg down starts. Exactly. Well, nice way to say it would be like it opens up this space down here, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So that's the thing to watch. As long as we're below 108, the idea is that it can consolidate, and if we take this out, we're going to go lower.
Where does your 90? Where does your 90 in time go into next year?
Yeah, June of next year.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I mean, we went almost 45 weeks up, right?
Right, about 45 up, and so 45 down would be nice symmetry.
It would be almost too easy, but the currencies do that often, So
yeah,
we can expect that for sure. That's all I got. Are you covering natural gas?
Yep. I'll talk about nat gas.
Yeah, the whole thing there is, we're holding the lows here. We're holding the trend line.
Just a normal pullback.
It looks like a normal move up. It's still slightly bullish, so that's what we want. Dow, 33,000 is really the key on this chart. If we lose that, that would be similar to losing this October 4th lows, right? So watch that. And what else? I remember that you said gap and crap when you were up here.
yeah, that's right.
And that's exactly what happened.
Look at that. Perfect.
A bit of an island reversal, right?
Totally.
Right there.
Left the island above the
square. And it left it when it opens below the square.
Yeah.
It gaps above, and then we open below the other side, and then bam, there we are.
Yep.
And of course, we get down to this ABCD area. This is kind of a support level around 1690, let's say 16,900. So
right.
That's where we hold it there. All right. That's all I got. Let me put it back to you. Let's cover
everything. I decided to show Bitcoin because look what it did.
Look at that.
If we close up here, we haven't quite cleared the square because this bar was across it, but that's a first step. I mean, remember how boring. That's all boring. And then you get that one bar and then it goes.
Yeah.
But a close above that full square is bullish.
Yeah.
It opens up this quadrant, up to a little over 33,300. So I just wanted to share that because I know there's some people out there that are looking at it, and I've kind of de-emphasized it because it's been so boring.
Right, right.
But as soon as I do that, that's when it kicks up. It's like clockwork. It's classic, right?
Yeah.
Perfect read on
Well, we've
sentiment.
been covering that. Did you cover it last week?
No, I don't think so.
That's why.
I don't think I did.
Yeah,
Honestly, we have to go back and check, but I don't think I did. It's like
yeah.
it's a perfect read on sentiment for Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the commodities. So today I'm going to go over all three grains. They have perked up nicely, building off of the lows I think they put in. We'll revisit the sugar short. We'll talk about coffee, which is a long that we were talking about last week, had a really good week. You covered gold very well, so I'm not going to go into gold. I'll look at silver. You covered crude really well, so we won't need to go into crude, and then we'll cover nat gas. So let's start off with the NQs first. We want to take a look at those because we did have some action there. So the big thing that we have happened this week in the last 2 days, we lost the half square.
Mm-hmm.
Right, this was that 14,955 level. We're now below it. So I think a lot like the ES, minimally we're gonna have to watch and see what happens with these lows, which it looks like they're gonna get taken out. And if they do, then it's full square.
Right.
And we got to see if we can hold that full square. Full square is around 14,350 in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some decent downside that we could see. The other thing we have to take notice of is the rebounds are giving us lower highs.
Yeah.
Sellers are stepping in. So it looks bearish, and it looks, if you look at the bigger time frames, let's go to the weekly. We just broke the trend line today.
Yeah.
And that's the trend line from January.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like we're heading towards the full square here, which is in the same area, 14,300. And then you got a monthly that we just crossed below the half square here.
Right, right.
So that's also looking ominous. So we got to be careful. I mean, you have to understand the possibilities. The possibility is we could see waterfall selling,
Mm-hmm.
based upon the structure of these three different time frames, just like the ES. What do we need to do? We could also see false breaks, right? We could also see a higher low. And those are the things that we don't know what's going to happen. We just have to watch the price action. And then based on that, we can assess the odds of, what has the highest probability of happening next. But there is based on where we close, there is a chance we could see, if we take out these lows and then lose the full square here. I mean, that opens up down to around 13,700, like roughly another 1,000 points from where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I would say is we watch price action, watch these lows very carefully, see what we do Sunday night, Monday, and then that's gonna tell us a lot. The other thing we could do is we could rally up and we could fail at this half square.
That's the one to watch.
Yep.
That's a key level.
And that could set up a big, another big sell.
Yeah. What is that level?
The half square is, let me see, 14,955, just under 15,000.
Yep. That's a level to watch.
That is the one to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else you want to add on the NQs?
Well,
Yeah.
I have 14,260 as major support.
Let's see, 14,260. So that's down right in here, right near the full square.
Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
that is good support, good natural support.
Right. So let's see what happens with price action, because that's going to dictate what is most likely to come next. So we'll see. Let's go. Let's jump into the commodities. I want to make sure we can cover all these. So let's start with the grains.
Mm-hmm.
Here's wheat. Okay. Last week, I told you a few of the commodities were sort of setting in their bottoms, but there was nothing really to talk about. Wheat and soybeans were the not yets. Well, after this week's price action, we can highlight them. Corn was the one we highlighted last week. So what did we get? We got a higher high. We had the higher low last week. This week we get a higher high. And look what we're doing. We pushed above and now we're pulling back. So I want to see the character of this pullback. Can we sit on this full square?
Mm-hmm.
And that's around, call it 650, around 578. If we can stay on top of 578, super bullish.
Right.
The other thing we want to notice is all of this price action was potentially like a continuing false break, right? Like it was a move that came down. We took out this low, but now we're right back above it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me show you some of the other thing I want to show you on wheat was the weekly. On wheat was the weekly. Why the weekly looks interesting. We got to close above that full square.
Right.
Didn't quite clear it because, we got part of the bars below it. But next week, if the price action is all above this full square level, which is, call it 576, that would be clearing that bar. And again, cementing in that this was a kind of a false break low. The other thing to notice is we had a low inside bar, and now we got 2 up weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pushing. That's that. Let me look at the monthly because I wanted to highlight the monthly as well. This is what's probably capping us today at the high.
Right, right.
That's a half square. So that's 607 level or last week's high. If we can take that out, that'll be a really bullish sign for wheat. So today it's call it today's high. If we take that out, which was, what was today's high? Like 604.50. Take that out. That'll be a very bullish sign.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add on wheat?
Well, I think that 608.50 is the key. We need to get above that and as long as we can hold above that main square line and eventually push above today's high, let's say, that's where it's going to get some traction.
I think that's exactly.
But I think
right.
let this pullback finish up too.
Yeah. Let's see what happens with it.
Yeah. Let it finish up, shake everybody out.
Agreed. Get some fear.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's jump to the next one. Corn, which was the most bullish. It's interesting that we failed here. Like yesterday, we shot through this resistance, closed at the high, and then a big reversal today. I'm okay with it because it looks like we basically just completed that ABCD and are getting a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we want to watch. Ideally, it would have been nice if we could have closed above the, and stayed above this full square, but we didn't. Now I just want to see, can we get another higher low? Like here's the reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we can get a third higher low, it could set us on track, to get that fast move up. Generally, that you get with the third wave.
Yeah.
Let me show you the weekly here too, because I had something I wanted to show you on the weekly. We already have a higher high and a higher low on the weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, while it's tight and it's small and it doesn't look like much, I mean, this is the green shoots you want to see at the corner, right? This is the evidence that starts mounting. We had a low, had a reaction up, pullback gave us a higher low. This next push gave us a higher high. As long as we can hold this trend line and give us another higher low, again, we're just trying to catch that fast leg that comes out of these things. So I thought that was interesting how already on the weekly we've got a higher low and a higher high. Anything to add on corn?
I think it's in good shape, long as we're above. I think last time I told you from the high on June high, we basically squared out. We were 90 in price by 45 in time. So I think that was a pretty good square, and we're probably going to slowly move higher.
Agreed.
Yeah. So long as that square is in place, that low is in place, we're in good shape.
Right. Let's go to the last one, which is beans. Beans also had a very nice week.
Mm-hmm.
Strong push up above this half square. So the key for me is the next pullback. Because we haven't had the first pullback, right? It's been up bars, inside bars, up bars, up bars, up bars.
Mm-hmm.
So this first pullback, can we get a higher low? Ideally, if it's super strong, we stick on top of this half square, which is what's that? 13. Look, I'm looking on my spreadsheet. It's easier than reading the chart. 1305 area.
Yeah.
If we can pull back, stay on top of that, then it's super bullish. As
Mm-hmm.
long as it gives us a higher low and reverses, we've got something to work with here too. Let me see if I've got some of the. Yeah, I want to show you the weekly on beans. That's pretty good for a full the low is right on the full square. So clearing this square next week, if the low stays above the full square here, which is call it 1282, it'll mean we've opened up this quadrant now for beans on a weekly basis. And we've got the outside reversal bar, and now we have a follow through bar up. So I do like the way beans acted this week, and now we got to see this first pullback. What happens?
Right.
What are your thoughts on beans?
I agree. I think we should wait for the first pullback and see how we set up. But we do need to get moving because we have been making lower lows and lower highs. So we really have to watch the next one.
Yeah. Yep. We need that higher low. That higher low will cement the corner and then give us a decent risk reward setup for the next move.
Right.
All right, let's go look at some of the softs. We talked about the sugar short, and it had an interesting bar today. I was thinking earlier in the week that, okay, we got the reversal and then it reversed again, and then we reversed again today, and look where we closed. Smack dab on the half square.
Right.
It's amazing how many times that happens.
On Fridays.
Especially on Fridays, right? So here, as long as we what the key thing for me this week, whether this thing is a punt or this looks like it's good, is this half square.
Mm-hmm.
We stay below 26.91. The short's in good shape. It looks like it's rolling over, and minimally we'll do an ABCD. Let's show you where that would take us. Which would be perfectly down on the full square.
Right.
That would be the minimum target, right? If it happens to be a bigger wave down, obviously it's going to blow right through that, but that would be a minimal target. If we start settling above or getting above this half square, I'd say the setup's no good.
Mm-hmm.
That it's doing something else. Maybe it's going to do a bigger triangle here and just sort of wind around as opposed to moving. But I wanted to follow up on that because I know I had talked about that previously. Anything catch your eye on this chart?
Well, from the July low, we squared out at the high. We were 90 degrees up on my charts.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, that's a place to rest and pause, and which we did. And we made a lower high. So it squared out, but it's still kind of pressed up against the high. You know what I mean? It didn't really sell off in any big way.
Right.
But the half square is at what I have is 24.75, where we get, well, it's right under your 25 right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we could easily get down there and really kind of clear things up and get moving.
Right.
But up until then, that's sort of the zone. We had the 90 up at the high,
mm-hmm.
which is really like 27.75, and the 50% square is 24.75. So yeah.
Right.
And now we're at the other end, so there's definitely, we can move into the lower end.
Yeah, we just have to. For me, it's this interaction with this half square. Which side is it going to pick?
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be the next clue. Then let's go to the long. We had Cocoa, by the way, is in the process of making a lower high, but it hasn't yet. So that's why I haven't put that one up. We'll see how that plays out in this next week. But let's go to coffee. It had a hell of a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, 5 straight days up.
Yeah.
Last week we called the price and time low here.
Mm-hmm.
Said this thing looked good, looked like we could get a move higher, and we have the move higher now. We
Uh-huh.
we took out this previous high, so that's the first good sign. Obviously, with a pattern like this, you have no pullback, so we got to wait and see what does that first pullback look like on a daily basis. If it gives us a higher low, then we could really be seeing a big move coming up in coffee. I think I have. Yeah, I wanted to show you the weekly and the monthly here because they're sort of kicking in as well. So here's another example of, remember last week we were talking about, okay, the weekly gave us an outside reversal bar. Look at the follow-up bar. You know, that's the thing. Finding that bar gives you the ability to say, okay, it's likely I'm going to get some follow through in the next week. And did we ever? Broke the steep downtrend line. It's going to probably run into some headwinds here around 168. And maybe that ushers in that first pullback that we're looking for on the daily. I also saw this on the monthly, which Barrie, you'll really appreciate this one.
Wow.
Right now we're working on an outside reversal monthly bar on a full square. Right. So let's say if we can close, well, it's exactly going to be if we close the month anywhere above 146.15. No, that's the close. I'm sorry, I got to look at the high. 164.50. So anywhere above that, if we close, we will have an outside reversal monthly bar, which is huge.
Right.
You don't see those very often. I haven't seen many of those. How about you?
No, not much.
So
Yeah.
it's obviously there's still, I think 7 trading days left in this month, so a lot can happen, but it's something to notice. Even if we don't get the outside reversal bar and we just get an outside bar and we stay on top of this full square, again, it's longer term bullish. So the follow up here is great first push. Let's see if we're stalling here based on the weekly resistance at 168. Where does that first pullback come in? If it does and we reverse, it'll give us a very nice setup for a long coffee trade. Anything to add here on the coffee side?
Well, that low squared out on your chart and it squared out on mine. It was from the high in April. It was 60 by 120. So the low is solid. You got to just trade it now.
Agreed.
Yep. Very,
very good. Let's go to the last one. Or I have two left. Let's go to silver. This one is I call it like gold's little brother, but it had a good week, not as good as gold, but a very good week. We had a nice square out here, ABCD, another ABCD, and a great move off of it like gold into the half square. We were up all week. The only down bar, see this little bar here on Thursday, that was the only down bar, and then it reversed immediately. So that shows you the kind of power that we're seeing in this move, is that the only thing you could get is one day. We cleared the full square. You can see here, this is the pullback bar, and we stayed above the full square, which is around 2270. So right now, the half square is in play, and that's the target, which is, call it 2460. So silver, I think, looks really, really good. This low was good. The ABCD was good. The move off of it's good. We cleared the full square. Now it's the next resistance is up here. And I think that's the short-term target, is that 2460 area. Anything else to add on silver?
No, you got it. Very good coverage.
Okay.
Key level to watch.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And by the way, all these levels are in a Google Doc spreadsheet, which we will post the link to when we post the link to the weekly video. So you can get all that information if you want it. Let's go to our last one, our friend natural gas. So the thing that I love about this chart is look how harmonically it's acting with the square, right? Remember, we couldn't get moving because we kept bumping our head up against the full square.
Yep.
multiple times. We got up on top of it. As soon as we sat onto it, fast move up to the half square, tried for 3 days to get above there, couldn't, and now we're pulling right back to the breakout point, the full square. I know it could get you seasick with how much this thing moves, but these are perfectly harmonic, bullish moves, right? As long as we hold this full square on the pullback, or even, we could pull back a little bit below it and give us another higher low, hold this trend line. Nat gas is in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
And while nobody likes to see pullbacks, unless you're trying to get in, if you're long, it's part of the game. The key is to look at the nature of the pullback and where it stops, because that tells you about what odds favor will come next. The other thing I wanted to show you on this, Barrie, is something you love, is these back tests of triangles. And here we go.
Oh, look at that. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
Yep. Came down, touched that triangle, that trend line that was controlling this triangle. Mm-hmm. And we pushed up off of it. If we can hold above sit on top of this triangle, super bullish. And remember, this isn't a 5-minute chart or a 10-minute chart. This is a weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, it looks good. Looks good.
Yeah. Anything to add? I know you been tracking this thing because big moves are coming.
They're coming, and I think the lows are in place. That's fairly easy to see, and it's really that your square there. That's a level we have to hold above. Even if it comes down, I mean, the thing is, even if it comes all the way down the trend line, we still have an uptrend. So it's just a matter of waiting for it to really kind of base itself in. And right. I still think above 298 is really where the momentum is going to start flooding in. 298 is like all the old highs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're at 292. If we can get above that, we're in pretty good shape.
Right, 298. Right. Let's see, that's 96 right there, about there.
Yeah, we need to get on top of that. And yeah, we're good.
Now, gas looks good. It's doing its pullback. Just focus on where the pullback ends, and then based on that, we can assess, what are the probabilities for what comes next. Yeah. And that's it from commodity land.
All right. Good job. Good job. Covered everything.
It was a big week. A lot of things moving, which is fun and exciting. And, next week I'll be focusing on these commodities I highlighted, it in addition to the gold that, Barrie talked about, and crude. They both look really good. Of course, ES and NQ, and bonds, we really got to watch to see, are we going to get turns? Are they just going to blow through support and continue in the same direction? Because that, to me, that's the big decision that's coming up. How about you, Barrie?
Well, so many things on the plate, so many moving parts all of a sudden.
Right.
I would say I'm on the whole thing. We have to watch everything. But obviously S&P is the key thing. Bonds, not so much. It looks like we're coming into that corner. So, but the S&P could be just getting started on one way or the other. So we really have to catch that and see how it's going to end up.
It's how it deals with support and what it does once it gets there. That's what we really got to figure out.
Exactly. And everything else is kind of on a little bit of resting mode, right? Dollar's kind of pulled back. It's okay. We know where that is. Mm-hmm. Crude kind of resting after all the action. Gold is, had a hell of a move up, and now it's hit the 2000 on the weekly charts. So really leaves the S&P and the Nasdaq's really sort of the focus. So, yeah,
that's where we'll focus.
Yep.
Anyway, great job, Barrie. Good show today. Everybody, listen, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everybody. See you later.
All right. Bye bye.